And we are live on this Tuesday, October 8th, 2024, with breaking news. Breaking news in the world of watches and the world of watch YouTube. Guilty. Guilty. Anthony Ferrer pleads guilty to wire fraud and mail fraud. We have all the details coming up. We have the plea agreement in our hands, and we are ready to go through it in excruciating detail. Guys, this is the end, not quite the end of the chapter, but this is exciting. It's exciting breaking news from the world of watches. So let me just get a few quick admin things out of the way here. I'm going to drop the link to the channel momentarily. First, let me just make sure that notifications are being sent out. And we will get this show on the road. Let me drop the link. I would like to invite Crime Piece to join the program. If Crime Piece is listening, I'm going to drop the link for you. Link. And I'm going to pin that link now, so anybody can jump on. Let me just bear with me, guys. I just have a few quick admin things to take care of here. We're doing an emergency breaking news live stream. And so I want to make sure that people are aware that we are live. Cool. Let's get to it. Guys. Breaking news, if you just joined. Guilty. How about that? That sums it up, right? Guilty. Anthony Ferrer has pled guilty to one count of wire fraud and one count of mail fraud. We're gonna do a full analysis of the plea agreement in just 5 minutes. But we want to hear from you. Also, we'll be analyzing what does this mean in terms of jail time. What are the potential sentencing guidelines for someone who's found guilty of federal wire fraud and federal mail fraud? So let's. So if anybody knows Crime Piece, if you could just hit him up on Instagram and just let him know that we're live. Be great to get his take on it. But let's say hello to the chat. We're going to go through the key elements of the plea agreement shortly. And I haven't gone through all 26 pages. Frankly, I haven't gone through any of it. But let's see. We'll be able to go through it together, guys. We'll go through it together as soon as we get a bunch of people on the stream in the audience. We will go through it in detail. Let's say hello to the chat. We got BW in Florida. Good evening. What's up, BW? We have Diego M in the chat. Wire fraud and mail fraud. I called it. Well, those were the two things that the two crimes with which he was charged. So yeah, that's was going to be either one or both of those. Good call, Diego. You nailed it. Good job. Dear Artifacts in the chat, he says, this is the end of the chapter, the beginning of the movie script drafting. Yep. I have no doubt that this story will be told in a very interesting way once we, told in a very interesting way. What's up, Diego?
What's up?
So I was on the train. I hopped on the train because I was going to go to the Justin Timberlake concert tonight. And then usually I check Twitter to see if something happened, if there are any delays or anything. And I logged in. I think I don't even check Twitter X except in circumstances like this. I logged into Twitter X. Justin Timberlake's not on Twitter X. Like he stopped supporting that platform a long time ago. But the venue was on, and they reposted a tweet or something that Justin Timberlake put out saying he was injured. He was injured and postponing tonight's concert. So
interesting. What happened to him?
I'm not quite sure, but that gave me an opportunity. We turned around, we came home, and I thought, you know what? I've heard the news that a plea agreement has been struck, and I thought it would be good to do a breaking live stream. There are other channels out there that are supposedly watch channels, but they don't cover watch-related news at all. They just, do talk nonsense back and forth,
Right.
So that we would be the only channel to do it. And sure enough, here we are doing it. Nobody else is really covering the story.
How did you hear about this? What accounts do you have to follow to?
That I'll keep a secret. But I actually have a Pacer account, which is the online system that's used for the court filings. Yeah. So I was able to log in, and I saw that there was a new entry there that said plea agreement, and it said click here to log into Pacer, and I clicked on it, and I have my username and password saved in Pacer already, so I don't have to remember it, which was convenient, and it just popped right up. So you're actually looking at my browser screen right now as it populated. By the way, Happy Meal, if you want to jump on the panel too, because I know that you've been following this saga somewhat closely. I mean, through intermediaries. OC, how dare you do this stream without docked reports and lose? This is a cutthroat business. Hey, I don't know where those guys are. There's certain people who cut their chops on covering Timepiece Gentlemen. Those people are nowhere to be found. They're gone. They're off YouTube forever, thankfully. So this is watch-related news, so we're here to cover it.
So what's the date of this plea agreement?
The date of this plea agreement is October 7th, 2024. So it was signed yesterday by both parties and was filed, and I think it was made public, late yesterday or early today. So we got Dr. LM. Good evening, OC. What's up, Dr. LM? Good to have you here. Hey, we got Mathis, co-CEO of the Watch Community Channel Network. He's in the chat.
He's also my life coach.
Not just in physical fitness, but in all aspects of life. Yeah. Wizard, you're next, you jabroni. Thank you for the super chat, Mathis. Guys, we are gonna accept super chats tonight. We are breaking news. No one else is covering this. Not a single outlet is covering this. If you do a search for Anthony Farrer on the Google, you won't see any articles about this. You won't see any blogs about this. We are bringing it to you live, and we're bringing it to you first. And we already have 30 people watching, which shows that, and we're not going to cover this every day. We're going to cover this tonight. And we may cover this when news comes out about what the sentencing is going to be. But this is certainly breaking news for those of us who watched his videos. And this guy was an integral part of Watch YouTube for a couple of years, at least, right?
Let me ask you, when you plea, you kind of negotiate the sentence prior to the plea, but it's not necessarily in the plea, maybe? Or how's that work?
No, I don't. I'm not sure if you do or not. And that's a great question.
Everything I've seen on Law and Order is like, listen, Malcolm, 15 years. It's a good deal.
Right.
Take it. Fine.
I think
all right.
now that you bring it up, I think you're right. I think you typically negotiate the charges that to which you're going to plead guilty, and you typically the prosecutor or whomever says, listen, okay, it means 3 years in the clink or whatever, and that's what you negotiate. So maybe that's in here. I don't actually know. It could be in here. We're going to find out together, guys. So all I'm breaking right now is that guilty. There is a plea agreement. It's signed. It's been filed, and Anthony Farrer agrees. He's admitted to guilt.
I just saw AKA the Timepiece Gentleman.
That's right. That could be the name of the movie. You never know. AKA the Timepiece Gentleman. Got Jonathan Smith in the chat. The OC and the Diego M are here on the panel. Got Rose in the chat. I'm no lawyer, but I am legit surprised. This document says AKA the TPG. Yep. Too. Yeah, it's funny. The judge can accept or reject the plea deal. Usually they accept. And I think it's very rare for a judge to not accept a plea agreement to which both sides have negotiated and agreed. So we will see. It's not guaranteed, but then you can negotiate the recommendation for sentencing. Again, the judge can accept or reject. That's a good point. Maybe in the plea agreement, it's a recommendation for sentencing and not a full-blown, hey, we agree that you're only going to get 3 years. The judge could say, listen, these crimes are so egregious or whatever, you're going to get 5 years. Or you could say, you know what? These aren't really worthy of 3 years in prison. Maybe you get out with time served. So we shall see. Those are all good points. Earls says, and then you can jump in after this. Earl says you can negotiate the prosecutor's recommendation, but the court has to agree in the end. The court can toss the deal if the judge thinks it's too lenient.
Yeah, man. This is, I hate to say it, but I called this shit a long time ago. I remember I said this is clear wire fraud and mail fraud. And I remember a lot of detractors were like, oh, no way, no way. It's like he sent the watch and that's it. I mean, it's just a watch. It's like, no, when you agree to a deal and you send this guy your watch and then he admits online that he owes $5 million, like that's an admittance to taking someone's possessions. It's fraud. That's what it is. I'm glad.
It is fraud. It's an open and shut case. I mean, whenever you do anything using the banking system or you're transferring money or you ship something, you're fucked. You know, the government can pretty much get you for interstate commerce, which makes it a federal crime, which makes it wire fraud and mail fraud. So there you go. And Dewey's in the chat. You can negotiate the location and the lockup. Mr. Tutor to you says, hey, what the fuck, OC? Concert canceled and dinner plans. Actually, we had dinner before we left. We went to Panera Bread. I don't really love Panera Bread.
How'd you get a table there? Wow.
it was so hard. Yeah. I had to call ahead. Terrible.
You had to have your Amex person make it for you.
That's right. I had black card concierge. But yeah, I don't love Panera Bread, and frankly, on the drive home, I almost felt like getting Taco Bell. So that's how bad. But I knew I technically already had dinner, so I shouldn't do that.
You're supposed to be working on your Watch Time New York body. No Taco Bell. Come on, man.
I know that's true, and thank you for reminding me. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's true. At best, Rose says, this is an episode of Matlock with the woman from Misery, Kathy Bates. Yeah. She won an Academy Award for that, I think. But no way there's going to be a TPG movie. Not enough cinnamon on these buns. No talk of cinnamon or pineapple juice on the show tonight, guys. Let's try and... I'm gonna have to. If I have to ban those words in the chat,
no, they can behave. They can behave.
Okay, yeah, you guys behave. Rosie says we had Taco Tuesday tonight. That's right, Taco Tuesdays. Everyone should have Mexican food on Tuesdays. And my stomach still hasn't recovered. Yeah, so they had tacos brought into the office. Yeah, cool. Guys, we have over 40 people watching. Smash the upvote button. We don't even have 15 upvotes, guys. I'm pretty embarrassed. Let's get to at least 15 upvotes. And then we're going to go through. We may wait until we get 50 or 60 people because we're going to get it because it's a hot topic. And if Crime Piece or any of the other experts on the Anthony Ferris, Curly, anybody else wants to jump on the panel? This is not a watch-related topic per se. This is the watch industry. This is watch YouTube, watch social media. So everyone is welcome to participate. Timepiece Gentleman had an impact on the watch community for sure. I mean, when he was arrested, and even before arrested, when he was found out, it put a tremendous, there was a tremendous cloud over the issue of consignment and other, the shady practices of the gray market. So, if the name of the stream is Hurricane Milton, then we would have 100,000 viewers. Yeah, we should just change the name, just say live Hurricane Milton tracker.
Boston has changed. He's so trolly now. I like it.
Yeah, he's gotten. Listen, watches are boring. Watches are the same. We got Lord of Fleck in the chat. I wonder how many charges he was able to escape by pleading. Actually, he escaped all of them except for 2.
How many counts?
I think there were 13 counts, maybe 13, 14, something like that originally. And he pled guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of mail fraud.
What?
Yep, that's it. Only 1. Maybe the prosecutors thought, 1 is all I need. The judge is going to give him 3 years or whatever, and you're piling on a whole bunch of proving the other ones. There were 69 counts. No. Are you serious, Rose? Or are you just using Diego's favorite number?
Or his lawyer was like, look, do you really want to go through 13 of these cases? Like, would it be 13 separate cases or would it be 1 federal case?
Yeah, it'd be 1 case.
Are you sure it's 1 count or he's guilty to all?
No, he's guilty to 1 count. Well, we're going to go through it in detail. That's what I understand. So, guys, if you want to jump on the panel and join in the conversation, you can. Let's get to 20 likes first. And then, Mathis, what's up?
Yo.
Why are you still in Florida?
I'm not in the path. I'm okay. Don't worry about me. I'm more scared of Rebel streaming tickers on a Tuesday.
Tickers is in bed, but if Tickers wants to join the panel, jump on.
This doesn't look good with the TPG thing. This looks like he's going to get off with like 3 years of time served.
Yeah, or less. He could be out. He could be out soon. You never know.
What about the fake robberies? Is he not going to ever be charged for that? That took up police hours. That's a major crime. That's taking up police hours. That's the same charges that.
Hey, we don't file charges on people just because someone made a Reddit post, Mathis, claiming that something was a fake. You have to have evidence.
He called police to his house. He did a fake robbery with Marco, most likely. He's like Jussie Smollett.
Sommelier? Jesse Sommelier is involved in this?
It's just like TPG. They pulled the same move.
Live, TPG escapes from the Los Angeles Metro Jail and joins OC on the panel. That's a good title. How's that one, Boston? Yeah, that's a good one. Scott Wexlin in the chat. We got Vamal Nair in the chat. What's up, guys? We're quickly approaching 50 people watching this. When we get to 50, we'll go through this plea agreement in detail in just 5 minutes. So
It's not looking good.
I think when I heard that he pled guilty to 1 count of mail fraud and 1 count of wire fraud, my immediate thought was the same as yours, Mathis, that this guy's getting off scot-free.
Yeah, and the biggest problem about it is when the Wizard sees this, he's going to go triple his sales because nothing's going to happen to him.
Hold on a second. We don't know if some deals were made in the background.
Well,
listen, you need to plea out to 1 case. We can't just let you off scot-free, right?
They need to make an example of this jabroni. Reopen Alcatraz
I'm gonna put you in
throw
a
him in there.
headlock next time I see you. Tell you what, it's sentence right there.
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
You want to see Diego put Mathis in a headlock? Come to New York next week. Literally 1 week from today, people are going to be flying into New York from all over, and tomorrow too. A week from tomorrow.
Yeah. Today's Tuesday, right?
Today's Tuesday. I'm exaggerating. But, well, people are going to be packing a week from today. How about that?
Yes. You had me concerned because I was looking at my work week this week and I was like, oh my God, tomorrow's Thursday. No, but it's very possible that they're like, he gave them some information and they said, okay, you got to plead guilty to 1 count. Forget the 13, 1 count. Well, this is the deal. And reduce, we're giving you this deal because you're giving us this info. Who knows? I'm sure the possibility that he was just working alone on this is so it's out there, right?
Well, if he is cooperating behind the scenes, those obligations are going to be in this, and I don't know if it's this way. Is it this way? In this agreement. So those obligations are going to be spelled like the defendant agrees to cooperate in this way, in this shape, in this form. So
what information could he possibly have? He's not doing sex trafficking, drugs. This is jabroni stuff. There's no information to get.
I kind of agree. I don't think. I mean, one of the questions that people have though is what happened to the watches? Where are the watches, or where's the money?
He spent the money on sushi alone, on dinner for me. Come on.
That's right. Wagyu's expensive.
$5 million.
Wagyu's expensive.
$5 million sounds a little difficult to spend in that amount of time.
Hookers, blow. That's it.
That's a lot of blow.
He didn't shove it in a Swiss bank account, and he's waiting to get out.
He could have $1.5 million in watches easily. 3 Richard Milles tucked away somewhere, saved for a rainy day.
Does he have a public defender or a lawyer?
He is a public defender.
He's got no watches.
How do you know? What difference does that make?
About 10 to 15 years on or off your sentence? What do you mean?
We will see. We'll be reading this plea agreement in excruciating detail, paragraph by paragraph, line by line, word by word, over the next 6 hours. So
Andy Binns is going to be reading it too, right?
Yeah. Well, we need someone to translate into
who we hired.
broken British. Yeah. We've got Race Against Time in the chat. We've got hey, Carlos Martin is in the chat. Carlos Martin says taxes. So many watch dealers give you a discount if you pay cash. That is not legal. Yeah, they didn't get him for tax. They didn't get him for tax fraud. They didn't get him for anything tax related.
So with European Watch Co., when I bought my day date, I said I want it at this price, taxes included, shipping included, right? And they said done. It's not like they didn't charge sales tax. The sale price, they reduced what would have been the tax, and so
backed into it.
Yeah, so they still pay. You still pay taxes.
Yeah, but I think Carlos's question is, did the people with whom he was working pay taxes? Was this part of an elaborate?
There was a lot of videos where I remember he would say things like, "Oh, if you're out of state, you don't have to pay taxes." And I don't think that was correct.
Yeah, but they're not going to go after end user customers who didn't contact their states and say, "Hey, I'd like to volunteer to pay sales tax."
Right.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I was streaming earlier with my landscaping crew, going crazy in the backyard. So our viewers are used to low standards. Guys, we have 60 people watching. I'm going to check the upvotes. Don't disappoint me. Yep, I'm disappointed. I want to see 35 likes. So I want to see 35 likes. Guys, if you're new to the stream, if you just discovered the stream because you're interested in Anthony Ferrer, this is the original OC channel, part of the Watch Community Channel Network. Do a search on YouTube. First of all, subscribe here. Make sure you have notifications turned on, but also do a search for the Watch Community Channel. Type in the Watch Communities Colony. That's another way to find it, and make sure you're subscribed there for all the best Watch live streams. Nobody else does live streams like we do.
And if you're the wizard, call the police and tell them your address, you jabroni.
I think they know his address.
Hey, Mathis. You want to hear my thoughts on the wizard?
Yes.
It's on the victims now. Okay. We've our only responsibility is to make people aware. But if the victims don't stand up and do something, he's going to walk free.
I agree.
So it's not our fight it's not our battle to fight. We can make people aware, but it's all we can do.
Let me see if I can get this to be a little bit bigger.
I swear, if you just reduce your screen in a little bit, you should be able to make it taller.
Yeah, I know I can.
There you go. And then can you get rid of the left there? Doxed. Perfect. Look at that.
Yeah, finding California papers like this is hard. I don't know how you did it.
Hey, we have a crack journalism team here. Nobody else is bringing you the breaking news. There are other streams that just like to focus on nonsense. And they're supposedly watch channels, but they haven't talked about watch releases in months. And we bring you the fresh news every single day, whether it's the first Omega in space, whether it's Hodinkee being sold to Watches of Switzerland, or now guilty. I was going to say guilty as charged. Sounds better, but it's not. It's guilty. He pled guilty. He pled guilty. So here we go. Let's first review the chat again, see if there's any. Hey, we got Elda Sense in the chat. What's up, Elda Sense? Good to see you. He will have civil suits. I don't think so. I don't think the Wizard or Timepiece Gentleman will have any civil suits. People won't be. They're not going to bother. They're not going to bother, guys.
You know what, though? Time out. He might. This sets a precedence. He's already pled guilty once, right? You don't have to go through the whole rigmarole.
Using too many big words in the same sentence.
The burden of proof is there's a precedence already, right? He already pled
precedent. It's precedent.
The precedent of proof is already there. He's pled guilty to one count. So if you have kind of the same information, you could hire a lawyer and take care of this pretty quickly. A court will find him guilty pretty quickly. It won't be a drawn out process, I would assume. But the question is, if you win, what are you going to get? The guy's got no money. So
I think if there's a plea agreement, that means they're not going to court.
No, I'm saying he has pled guilty to one count, right, of 13. So the other 12 people could potentially say, all right, now I'm going to file a civil suit. There's precedent, right? My case is exactly the same as the one he pled guilty to. This should be a pretty quick case.
Yeah, but civil cases aren't dependent on criminal cases at all. So if they had a legitimate claim, they could have filed those cases a long time ago, saying that that he was liable for whatever losses. I mean, your point, whether it's the Wizard or whether it's Timepiece Gentleman, is, as much advice as we want to give those people about what to do to handle their situations, it's on them now to band together, to unify, to do whatever it takes to resolve their situation. If they're going to remain divided, they will remain conquered, probably. So, Boston, what are you sending me? Just because I just don't want to be distracted. Let me see here. Is this any different than? Hold on. Let's see here. Oh, okay, yeah. So there's that lawsuit that's still there's one civil lawsuit that was filed in October of 2023. It's that one's still pending. Yeah. Let's see who we got. Double D in the chat. I plead guilty to being over the legal limit of awesomeness. There's actually some people that should plead guilty for having too many watches. How about that?
Me?
Yeah, anybody. All right, let's go through it. Let's try to. We're not lawyers, but we play lawyers on TV. And let's see if I can even find the thing here. Oh, yeah, it's not. It's in a non-maximized tab. All right, cool. Let's go through this. I'm going to start at the top here. This is filed by E. Martin Estrada, United States Attorney, Mac E. Jenkins, Assistant United States Attorney, Attorney Chief of he's Chief of the Criminal Division, and Joshua O. Mausner, Assistant U.S. Attorney's Chief of the Violent and Organized Crime Section, on behalf of the United States of America, filed in the United States District Court for the Central District of California, United States of America, plaintiff versus Anthony Ferrer, aka the Timepiece Gentleman, the defendant. And this document is the plea agreement for the defendant, Anthony Ferrer. Wow. Yep. This is it, guys. This is it, guys. We have 60 people watching. We did hit the 30 upvotes. That's pretty good, but keep going. Let's try to hit. Let's try to go to 35 upvotes. If you just joined the stream, it's the original OC channel. We're covering breaking news. Anthony Ferrer pleaded guilty to wire fraud and mail fraud. All right, let's read it. It's park. Curly would call this park bench premium. If you want me to pause at any time, I'll read a paragraph at a time, and then you can either say something or not, or we can discuss it. If the chat has anything to say, I probably won't be looking, I'll be honest with you. But if you super chat something, then we'll probably see it. I'm just going to be honest. We're not going to review everything in the chat. Got 70 people watching, so the comments are going to be flying in fast and furious. This constitutes the plea agreement between Anthony Ferrer, also known as the Timepiece Gentleman, the defendant, and the United States District Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, the USAO, in the above captioned case. This agreement is limited to the United States Attorney's Office and cannot bind any other federal, state, local, or foreign prosecuting, enforcement, administrative, or regulatory authority.
What does that last sentence mean, cannot bind any other? What's that mean?
I think what they're saying is that if Anthony Ferrer is brought up on state charges related to this has no impact on any other jurisdiction's ability to file criminal charges against him for anything that's covered in this.
So they can't say, we are charging you because you pled guilty to this in federal court, right?
Could you repeat that?
Essentially, what they're saying is like a state, a local, or a foreign entity can't charge Anthony Farah for wire fraud, mail fraud, based on him pleading guilty to on a federal level. Like they would have to do their own prosecution, independent.
Yeah, I think you just said that they can't do it, and
Correct.
That they can do it. They can. This is saying that this agreement does not restrict them from filing charges.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, gotcha. So this is the agreement is limited to the United States. District attorney is not applicable. It cannot force any other regulatory body to bring charges against Anthony Farah.
Okay, let's move on.
Yep, good question. The defendant's obligations. Here we go, guys. The defendant agrees to the following: A, at the earliest opportunity requested by the United States Attorney's Office and provided by the court, appear and plead guilty to counts 1 and count 7 of the indictment. So presumably that's the one count, the first count of wire fraud, the first count of mail fraud. And of course, if I actually read the rest of the paragraph, it would say that, which charges the defendant with wire fraud and mail fraud, respectively. Not contest the facts agreed to in this agreement. So Anthony Farah is agreeing that he cannot contest the facts agreed to in this agreement, which we will get to later, whatever those facts are. Anthony Farah agrees to abide by all agreements regarding sentencing contained in this agreement.
So we're going to get to sentencing.
We might. There might be something on sentencing in here. Anthony Farah agrees to appear for all court appearances, surrender as ordered for service of the sentence, obey all conditions of any bond, and obey any other ongoing court order in this matter.
E's a good one. I don't know if you can do this one.
I can do it, of course. Guys, I don't
know if Anthony can do E.
I can do it. Guys, I have my full broadcast voice on tonight. We're bringing you breaking news. Anthony Farah, guilty. He has pled guilty in advance of his upcoming trial date. Anthony Farah agrees not to commit any crime. However, offenses that would be excluded for sentencing purposes under United States sentencing guidelines are not within the scope of this agreement. Offenses that would be excluded for sentencing purposes are not within the scope of this agreement.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Not commit any crime. Okay, so don't commit crimes. However, offenses that would be excluded for sentencing purposes, which would be not.
I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
So maybe it's like, all right, he gets in a fight in jail, disorderly conduct or disturbing the peace. They're going to be like, whatever. But maybe what they mean is like, you can't commit more wire fraud or mail fraud. Everything else is it's a whole separate thing.
I think what it means is that you agree not to commit any crimes except for the ones that are in this indictment. You acknowledge that.
I think it means if you commit other crimes that are not in this indictment.
There you go. Yeah.
It's its own separate thing. But if you commit wire fraud or mail fraud during this plea agreement, and this is probably common language. They might be writing this for people that are out on bond, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, let's say it's for a DUI and you're like, okay, I'm going to plead guilty, and you're out on bond. They're like, all right, here's the fucking deal. You plead guilty. There's going to be a couple week process to get this approved. You better not get another fucking DUI, right? Now, if you commit theft, that's not really has no jurisdiction on this trial. But if you do the thing that we're giving you a deal on again, this agreement is null and void.
Well, if you're on probation, you'd really be screwed.
Yeah, keep in mind this is not a probation. These are not terms of probation. These are what he's agreeing to as part of the pleading guilty. So,
Okay.
so I'm not quite sure what this one means. If anybody's an expert on this particular clause, then jump on the panel and let us know. The link is pinned at the top of the chat. Let's keep going. So Anthony Fair also agrees to be truthful at all times with the United States Probation and Pretrial Services Office and the court. Anthony Fair agrees to pay the applicable special assessments at or before the time of sentencing, unless the defendant has demonstrated a lack of ability to pay such assessments. Anthony Fair agrees that all criminal debt ordered by the court will be due in full and immediately. The government is not precluded from pursuing in excess of any payment schedule set by the court, and any and all available remedies by which to satisfy the defendant's payment of the full financial obligation, including referral to the Treasury Offset Program.
So they're just raid him and take his house, any Ducatis he's got left, whatever.
Right.
The defendant, Anthony Fair, agrees to complete the financial disclosure statement on a form provided by the United States Attorney's Office, and within 30 days of the defendant's entry of a guilty plea, deliver the signed and dated statement along with all of the documents requested therein to the United States Attorney's Office by either mail, by either email, or mail. The defendant agrees that the defendant's ability to pay the criminal debt shall be assessed based on the completed financial disclosure statement and all
Time out, pause
documents.
it. Time out, pause it. He has a public defender. He may not get just 4 years. This guy might have really fucked up. He might be getting 25 years. This does not sound good, okay? If he truly has a public defender, he's fucked. Unpause.
He is a public defender because he's destitute, according to him. Why are you besmirching the skills and abilities of our noble public defenders?
I'm just trying to guess the sentence here, and it's looking a lot worse than I thought. I'm glad.
But basically, I means that he agrees to submit a financial disclosure, which he's basically going to say he doesn't have anything. So he's the defendant, Anthony Fair, agrees to authorize the United States Attorney's Office to obtain a credit report upon returning a signed copy of this plea agreement. And Anthony Fair agrees to consent to the United States Attorney's Office inspecting and copying all of the defendant's financial documents and financial information held by the United States Probation and Pretrial Services Office. And I need to grab some water. So if someone wants to read the next paragraph, that'd be great.
Yeah. 3, defendant further agrees, A, to forfeit all right, title, and interest in and to any and all monies, properties, and or assets of any kind derived from or acquired as a result of or used to facilitate the commission of the illegal activity to which defendant is pleading guilty, collectively the forfeiture assets. B, defendant further agrees to the court's entry of an order of forfeiture at or before sentencing with respect to forfeiture assets and to the forfeiture of the assets. That's quite a sentence. C, to take whatever steps are necessary to pass to the United States clear title to the forfeiture assets, including without limitation the execution of a consent decree of forfeiture and the completing of any legal documents required for the transfer of title to the U.S. So that's basically saying you owe us a lot of money for the time you spend in jail, court costs, etc. You are agreeing that you're going to sign all the appropriate documents required. So let's say he owned a house outright. He's going to sign a document that gives this to the United States government, essentially.
Yes.
And if he says, no, I'm not giving you my house, then they're like, the deal's off. We're going to trial.
Yeah, but he's going to do it. I mean, he's basically agreeing that, he's going to sign over all this stuff.
Yeah.
Did you read this one? To take whatever steps are necessary to pass to the United States clear title to the forfeitable assets.
Mhm.
He agrees not to contest any administrative forfeiture proceedings or civil judicial proceedings commenced against the forfeitable assets. We get that stuff. We don't think we have to read all of that in its entirety. Yeah, Anthony Fair agrees not to assist any other individual in any effort falsely to contest the forfeiture of the forfeitable assets. So, in other words,
that's why he had to cut off Lus.
Well, that's like if you're married, right? You're not going to tell your wife, like, sell the home before, right? Put it on the market, get it sold. Take the car to Carvana, get it sold.
Right, exactly. Not to collude with anybody to kind of hide assets. F is Anthony Fair agrees not to claim that reasonable cause to seize the forfeitable assets was lacking. So, in other words, he can't even say he can't even argue against the assets being forfeited.
Come on, you're taking my couch, really?
Yeah. Anthony Fair agrees to prevent the sale, transfer, sale, destruction, or loss of any and all assets described above, to the extent defendant has the ability to do so. So, in other words, if anybody is attempting to acquire, purchase, or take any assets that might be forfeited and go back to the state or to the victims, he agrees to prevent that from happening. He agrees to fill out and deliver to the United States Attorney's Office a completed financial statement listing the defendant's assets on a form provided by the USAO. And Anthony Fair agrees that forfeiture of the forfeitable assets shall not be counted towards satisfaction of any special assessment, fine, restitution, costs, or any other penalty the court may impose.
Wow. So this is just punishment.
Yeah, this
is just
not
paying anything.
Yeah, so this is we're seizing these assets. You're agreeing to basically you're forfeiting all these assets over to us, and that has nothing to do with fines or restitution. Interesting.
Wow. So if he did have a gold mine of watches and what have you, thinking like, I'll plead guilty and then I'll sell the Bubba Watson and that'll, I'm chipping away. That's not going to happen. He's starting from zero to pay these people back.
Yeah. The United States Attorney's Office obligations. The U.S. Attorney's Office, and I'm just going to say I'm just going to say the U.S. just because it's easier to say.
USA.
The USA. The USA agrees to not contest the facts agreed to in this agreement. The United States agrees to abide by all the agreements regarding the sentencing contained in this agreement, which we'll get to. The United States agrees to, at the time of sentencing, move to dismiss the remaining counts of the indictment against the defendant. And the defendant agrees, however, that at the time of the sentencing, the court may consider any dismissed charges in determining the applicable sentencing guidelines range.
Okay. All right.
The propriety and extent of any departure from that range and the sentence to be imposed.
Okay.
Sounds good.
No, Mathis, that does not sound. Oh, wait. Yeah, it sounds good for us. What that means is, okay, you're only pleading guilty to 2 counts, right? But your sentence will be based on all of them. In a way,
that's what that means?
Yeah, in a way, you're pleading guilty only to 2, but you're really pleading guilty to all of them. Your sentence, you'll have 2 counts on your record, but your sentencing will be based on 13.
Right, but a lot of times when it's like non-violent, they do he can get like 10-year sentences, and they run it concurrent, so he just goes for 10 years.
I don't
bullshit.
think federal does concurrent, do they?
I don't know.
No, okay. I don't think federal concurrent means all at once.
Concurrent or
right?
consecutive?
Yeah, concurrent means running at the same time.
Yeah. I think
Some
federal
bullshit.
court is consecutive. I remember someone saying that a long time ago. The other one, though, let me see. Dismiss rank counts. Never mind. We're good.
All right. So yeah, basically, I think it means that he's pleading guilty to one count of each, but the court may look at that and say, "Wink, wink. We know that he's basically guilty of all these." So when it comes to sentencing, take into account the whole scope.
So what are the maximum sentences of those two offenses in California?
And for that, we turn to our law and crime expert, Jason Pickering. Jason, no, I'm sorry.
I think it's 5 years each, Mathis. And if it's 13 counts, I'm really bad at math. I don't know how much that is. It's a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
But
it's
if
like
it's
50,
concurrent, then he'll get 5 for each.
65 years.
No, he'll never get that. Never. They'll run concurrent.
When we were talking about this a year ago, I brought up a case of a guy that had committed wire and mail fraud on the tune of 2.8 million or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he's going to jail for like 25, 30 years. So you never know. This might be Anthony's way of just saying, I'm fucked. Let's just get it over with.
Well, it's interesting that he knew he was going to plead all along. He even said, like, we're just waiting until the last minute, because the longer that they wait till the last minute, because the longer they wait, the more desperate the defendants get. They feel more state of panic,
right,
as they head towards the trial. The USA agrees at the time of sentencing, provided that the defendant demonstrates an acceptance of responsibility for the offenses up to and including the time of sentencing, recommend a 2-level reduction in the applicable sentencing guidelines offense level, and recommend, and if necessary, move for an additional 1-level reduction if available under that section.
Wow.
So, in other words, if Anthony shows some contrition and he shows up to court, he says, "Listen, I'm very sorry. I'm very apologetic. I was wrong. I did this. I did that." The United States is going to recommend not only a 2-level reduction, but then possibly a 3-level reduction in the applicable sentencing guidelines offense level. So
I wonder what those levels mean. Like, if it's 5 years, is one level below 4, 3, 2, or is it half?
Yeah, I mean, are those ranges different? So, like, one count of mail fraud might be, 3 to 6 or 5 to 10 or whatever, and the reduction could mean, like you said, something like 4 to 8 or 3 to 6 or whatever. We have no idea, but no one here is an expert in federal sentencing guidelines for these particular offenses. But if there are, jump on the panel. We'd like to hear from you. This is just our first pass at breaking news, guys. The United States agrees not to seek a sentence of imprisonment above the midpoint of the applicable sentencing guidelines range. Now, this is interesting.
What?
Provided that the total offense level used by the court to determine that range is 24 or higher after reductions for acceptance of responsibility, and provided that the court does not depart downward in the offense level or criminal history category. For purposes of this agreement, the midpoint of the sentencing guidelines range is that defined by the sentencing table. Okay, so
what they're saying here is, assuming that the range is 24 or higher,
We don't know what a range of 24 means, by the way. It's just a level. But let's say you had a range of 5 to 10 years for a hypothetical offense like wire fraud, and they reduced it 3 levels, and the levels made it that it was 2 to 4. The judge could give Anthony 2 to 4 years, and it was at the judge's discretion. What the U.S. Attorney's Office is agreeing to do is recommend that the sentence be no higher than the midpoint of that range. So if the range is 2 to 4, don't give him more than 3.
And this is probably language that, the agreement is we'll agree to, let's just say they said 5 years, right? And this is all language just kind of guaranteeing that it will not be more than 5. It could be less, potentially.
This is basically saying a cap, right? It's a recommendation. These are all things that I'm assuming that these are things that are often in plea agreements, but so it's covering all the bases. In other words, like, hey, we're going to recommend that we reduce the sentencing, that we recommend reduced sentencing by this level, but we also recommend that we're not going to, because the judge could say, hey, 2 to 4, fine, I'll give you 4. What this is saying is basically, no, we are recommending, judge, that you don't give 4.
Right, because what the lawyers can't do is they can't change the sentencing guidelines for these crimes, right?
That's right.
They can't say, let's just say capital murder is a 40-year sentence. The lawyers can't say, we agree to 20 years, because the judge is going to say, no, it's 40 years. What is it you're agreeing to? Okay, we're agreeing if he's remorseful to the murder, that we would be okay if you went to a mid-level, assuming he's not above 24 or below, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, they're saying it's a way of kind of getting around the sentencing guidelines.
Right.
The United States agrees. Yeah. So this is really interesting that they recommend that they will not seek imprisonment above the midpoint of the range. All right. Hold on a second. Let me take care of something. But here we go. Nature of the offenses.
Okay. Nature of the offenses, number 5. Defendant understands that for defendant to be guilty of the crime charged in count 1, that is wire fraud, in violation of Title 18 U.S. Code, Section 1343, the following must be true. 1, defendant knowingly devised or participated in a scheme or plan to defraud for the purpose of obtaining money or property by means of false or fraudulent pretense, representations, promises, or omitted facts. Deceitful statements or half-truths may constitute false or fraudulent representations. 2, the statements made or facts omitted as part of the scheme were material, that is, they had a natural tendency to influence or were capable of influencing a person to part with money or property. 3, defendant acted with intent to defraud, that is, the intent to deceive and cheat. And 4, defendant used or caused to be used an interstate wire communication to carry out or attempt to carry out an essential part of the scheme.
Yeah. So basically, Anthony Farrer agrees that he's guilty, that he knowingly and willfully scammed.
Right, because he can't say, I was going to take this guy's Daytona and sell it and pay him, but then shit happened.
Yeah,
he can't say that.
He's pleading guilty. So in other words, he's admitting the factual elements of fraud. Like, listen,
When I called the guy and said, I'll buy your Daytona for 30, I knew I wasn't going to give him 30. And when he said, how can I be sure I'm going to get paid? I sent him a document that I knew I wasn't going to follow.
Right. Now, a lot of times it's a formality to say something like this, because let's say I mean, in order to accept the plea agreement, you have to agree that you're pleading. You have to agree that you're pleading guilty. That's right. You can't say, "Listen, I'm not guilty of this, but I'm just signing that. I'm just agreeing to this because it's less, less jail time."
Yeah, you have to admit
You have to actually
exactly what
admit
it is
it.
you did.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
you're
part
guilty of wire fraud? Interesting. What did you do to do this wire fraud? I did this, and this.
Yeah.
Okay, you said it. You signed it, right? You weren't under duress. You knew exactly what you were claiming to have done. And you can't appeal. What are you going to appeal? Well, I didn't make statements or facts, and I didn't admit that the schemes were material. I didn't influence anybody.
No,
right?
I didn't do it.
No, but you did. You signed right here that you did. So he can't appeal this later.
Correct. Now, listen, there are times where I've gone to court where I've committed a traffic where I was alleged to have committed a traffic infraction, right? Of say running a red light or speeding or whatever. And as part of the plea agreement, the prosecutor will say, "Oh, you know what? Instead of this, we're going to reduce it down to a no points offense." And that offense is basically like whatever's easy for them to market. So it's like you're going to plead guilty for like not having the correct hubcaps. And I'll be like, well, but I didn't do that. They'll be like, well, we don't fucking care. You're going to plead guilty to that because it's 0 points, and you're going to go before the judge, and they're going to say, "Do you agree that you were guilty of not having hubcaps on your car?" And you're going to say, "I am, Your Honor." It's like, but it's a sham, It's like, there's, it's a wink and a nod. I'm not guilty, but I have to say that I am in order to get the reduced sentence.
They call that NOLO here in Georgia.
Yeah,
you've got so many NOLOs you can take.
So here we are, guys. If you're just joining the live stream, guilty. Anthony Fair, we're bringing you breaking news exclusive. It's an exclusive here on the Watch Community Channel Network. We have the plea agreement between the United States District Attorney's Office and Anthony Fair. He's guilty of wire fraud and mail fraud. And so, according to the first count, he's guilty of wire fraud. The defendant understands that for the defendant to be guilty of the crime charged in count 7, which is mail fraud, the defendant knowingly devised and participated in a scheme or a plan to defraud for the purpose of obtaining money or property by means of false or fraudulent pretenses, representation, promises, or omitted facts. Deceitful statements or of half-truths may constitute false or fraudulent representation. The statements made or facts omitted as part of the scheme were material. That is, they had a natural tendency to influence or were capable of influencing a person to part with money or property. And the defendant acted with intent to defraud. That is, the intent to deceive and cheat. And the defendant used or caused to be used the mails to carry out or attempt to carry out an essential part of the scheme. So basically, you defrauded people and you used the mail system.
So what would be a half truth? Like, yeah, I'll send the money. Never. When I can.
Do you think I'll
pay you when I can, which might be 2 years? Like, is that a half truth?
Yeah, I mean, do you think someone wrote this statement this statement was like cut and paste, and they used it all the way up until 1978, and then one time someone came into court and said, "Hey, this whole agreement needs to be tossed out, Your Honor. Why?" Well, the defendant used a half-truth, and in this agreement, it doesn't say that we can't use half-truths.
Yeah.
Shit. We got to start putting that in there.
Right. Penalties and restitutions.
Penalties and restitution. Guys, none of us have read this yet. We're reading this for the first time. The defendant understands that the statutory maximum sentence that the court can impose for a violation of Title 18 is 20 years imprisonment, a 3-year period of supervised release, a fine of $250,000, or twice the gross gain or gross loss resulting from the offense, whichever is greatest, and a mandatory special assessment of $100.
Nickel and diamond. 20 years. Okay.
So that's
and
the
is
maximum.
That's for Title 18, which was the wire fraud? Yep.
Oh, wow.
The defendant understands that the statutory maximum sentence for mail fraud is 20 years imprisonment, 3-year period of supervised release, a fine of $250,000, whichever is or twice the gross gain. The defendant understands, therefore, that the total maximum sentence for all offenses to which the defendant is pleading guilty is 40 years imprisonment, a 3 years period of supervised release, and a fine of $500,000 or twice the gross gain. The gross gain, I believe, was $5 million, right? So would that mean that there would be a fine of $10 million?
So no, I think what there's like, we don't know which case of wire and mail fraud, but let's just assume it was a $100,000 watch, right? He received the $100,000 watch and he gained 50 grand. So they're saying twice of 50 is 100,000, which is less than 250. So we're going to stick with the 250. But if he made millions off of what he stole, then they're going to.
Yep.
And it's
so
more than
I think.
250.
Yeah, I think for all purposes, it's just safe to say like $500,000 fine is possible.
But what's interesting is that they said that during sentencing, like though he's only pled guilty to 2 counts, they can look at the other 11 counts. If there's 13, I think there's 13. They can look at those others to impose their sentencing. So they might actually say the income was 5 million, so it's going to be a 10.
But I think this sets a cap. I think this sets I mean, you can consider those things, but basically this is saying that there's a cap.
Whichever. Well, it says or twice the gross gain, whichever is greatest.
From the offenses to which he's pleading guilty.
Right, but what I'm saying is there was some language earlier that said, though you only are pleading guilty to 2 counts, during sentencing we can reference the other crimes, the other not crimes, the other charges against you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I don't know.
Yep. The defendant understands that the defendant will be required to pay full restitution to the victims of the offenses to which the defendant is pleading guilty. The defendant agrees that in return for the United States compliance with its obligations under the agreement, the court may order restitution to persons other than the victims of the offenses to which the defendant is pleading guilty and in amounts greater than those alleged in the counts to which the defendant is pleading guilty. So in other words, they're saying that the restitution may be ordered to anybody that these guys say you have to pay back.
Now, really quick, let's pause. 2 things. 1, Boston says mid-cap is 20. That's assuming that these are consecutive terms. And 2, this statement, the defendant understands that they'll be required to pay full restitution, means that in 20 years, if he gets out of jail and he takes on any job, right, they're going to garnish his wages, correct? For the rest of his life.
I don't know if they'll actually do that far out into the future, but if he's earning any income over that 20 years in prison, most likely that'll also be put in a fund or whatever for restitution. Yeah. The defendant,
what about the paintings? What about the paintings?
That's right. All the proceeds of the paintings, where are they going? In particular, the defendant agrees that the court may order restitution to any victim of any of the following losses suffered by that victim as a result of A, any relevant conduct in connection with the offenses to which the defendant is pleading guilty, and B, any counts dismissed pursuant to this agreement, as well as all relevant conduct. The parties currently believe that the applicable amount of restitution is $5.7 million.
Oh, shit.
but recognize and agree this amount could change based on the facts that come to the attention of the parties prior to sentencing. Guys, there it is. The amount of restitution has been approximated at $5.7 million.
And remember,
shite.
And remember, anything that he forfeits, right? Cars, home, property, whatever, does not go towards that.
Nope.
Not a penny of it.
That will go towards fines if he's imposed a fine. Like
he could have had. Let's just say he did steal 5.6 million in watches, and he never went to Vegas. He never did coke. No hookers. He's sitting on this cash cow, and his thoughts were, well, if I get caught, I mean, I got it all right here. I'll just pay him back. The court is saying, no, that's not. You can't. You don't get to use that to pay him back.
Right.
Let me know if I'm wrong, Vimal. Vimal seems to know what he's talking about, but that's the way I understand it.
It's interesting that they put the actual number in here, and they've actually determined the amount of restitution. Let's see. Let's keep going. The court will also
what that tells me is that 5.6 is the number he referenced, right? I owe $5 million. That tells me everybody that he scammed came forward, right?
Probably.
Because let's just say he scammed 6 people and only 4 came forward. It wouldn't be 5.6. Now we have to believe his 5.6, but assuming his 5.6 was true, what he told us, that means that every one of those victims has come forward and they've been able to prove to the court that he did in fact agree to buy my watch for this much, and it all tallies up to 5.6. And it's also it's not just watches, guys. Remember, he was doing these build outs. He was getting investors, right? We're going to build out this new watch store. We're going to have an elevator, blah, blah, blah. Those guys gave him checks. Those guys are probably part of this as well. It's not just people that got scammed out of watches.
What's up, Amal?
Hey, guys.
So you've been doing a little bit of research in this. So tell us what do you think the pertinent elements of the research are?
It takes a Canadian to teach American law around here.
Yeah, so I was just going through the sentencing guideline that was mentioned in the earlier paragraphs, and it says he's being classified at level 24. That's the offense level, and that goes from as low as 51 months to about 120 months. So
I don't think it said he was 24. It said if he is a 24.
Max at 24, right?
Well, let's go back up to that sentence. We'll see if you don't mind.
I'll share the link.
It was... slow down. Nope, too much. Keep going. Keep going. Here, it's USAO's obligations. I think it's on the next page, towards the top. There it is. E. The USAO agrees not to seek a sentence of imprisonment above the midpoint of the applicable sentencing guideline range, provided that the total offense level used by the court to determine the range is 24 or higher. We don't know. I don't know what 24 means, but this is saying that the court is yet to determine what his
levels are. Okay.
Level is. Yeah.
And I think somewhere below they said the max is 20 years for each offense, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what, 240 months. Yeah. So in that, I think the minimum sentencing is 100 months. But that's on your first offense. So I'm not sure how many he has done. Right?
What if, and do you have information on if they were to lower 3 levels?
I've shared a link. I actually shared a link, so you can pull it up. So that's
I'm
for
not
the
going
entire team.
to. Yeah, I'm not going to.
So
okay,
so
let's assume it's 31, and 3 levels will bring it down to 78 months at the bottom end of the range, and the high end would be 175. So mid would be around 97 to 121.
Well, 20 months is 240 months. So a mid-level would be 120 months, which is 10 years per charge. Yeah. So we're still looking at 20 years, assuming he gets, because they also say we're not going any lower than mid, right?
Yeah.
So that's 20 years, assuming these are consecutive terms.
No, I think he'll serve it together. I don't think it'll be back to back.
Right, they'll go concurrent.
Yeah.
He'll just get 10 and less. He'll get 8, then he'll get off on good behavior 6.
Okay, so criminal history, level 24 is 125 months per count. That's 10 years.
At max.
So,
yeah.
So he's looking at potentially, call it 18 to 20 years.
Or could be, or he serves both concurrently. So 100 to 100.
Yeah. So at a minimum, 8.9 or something to 10 years.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
The court will also order forfeiture of any property derived from or acquired as a result of the illegal activity to which the defendant is pleading guilty, or substitute assets up to the value of that property. So anything that he purchased with those stolen funds, cars, motorcycles, watches, anything, they'll be able to claim those. The defendant go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wonder what substitute assets means. Like, let's just say that he had a daughter and he bought her a car, right? This might be the court's way of saying, we're not going to take this girl's car. She had nothing to do with it. She didn't know the car's worth 20 grand. We're going to find something else worth 20 grand.
That's right. We'll find something else worth 20 grand. Yep. The defendant understands that supervised release is a period of time following imprisonment during which the defendant will be subject to various restrictions and requirements. The defendant understands that if the defendant violates one or more of the conditions of any supervised release imposed, the defendant may be returned to prison for all or part of the term of supervised release authorized by the statute for which the offense that resulted in the term of supervised release, which could result in the defendant serving a total term of imprisonment greater than the statutory maximum stated above.
Wow. That's big. In layman's terms, he gets out in 10. There's going to be a period of time where he's on parole.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be, I'm sure we're going to read what they are, but there's going to be some rules imposed. And if he breaks any of those rules, they might say, hey, Anthony, you're going to jail for 30 years.
Yep. Could be. The defendant understands that by pleading guilty, the defendant may be giving up valuable government benefits and valuable civic rights, such as the right to vote, the right to possess a firearm, the right to hold office, and the right to serve on a jury. The defendant understands that he's pleading guilty to a felony, and that is a federal crime for a convicted felon. It is a federal crime for a convicted felon to possess a firearm or ammunition. The defendant understands that the convictions in this case may also subject the defendant to various other collateral consequences, including but not limited to the revocation of probation, parole, or supervised release in another case, and suspension or revocation of a professional license. The defendant understands that unanticipated collateral consequences will not serve as grounds to withdraw the defendant's guilty pleas. The defendant understands that if the defendant is not a United States citizen, the felony convictions in this case may subject the defendant to, okay, but he is a citizen, so you can skip that. Cool, let's go to the factual basis. The defendant admits that the defendant is in fact guilty of the offenses to which the defendant is agreeing to plead guilty. The defendant and the United States agreed to the statement of facts provided below and agree that this statement of facts is sufficient to support pleas of guilty to the charges described in this agreement and to establish the sentencing guidelines factors set forth in paragraph 17 below, but is not meant to be a complete recitation of all facts relevant to the underlying criminal conduct or all facts known to either party that relate to the conduct. Beginning on or about an unknown date, but no later than November 2022, and continuing to November 2023, the defendant devised, participated in, and executed a scheme to defraud clients of his luxury watch business. And as part of the scheme, the defendant owned and operated Timepiece Gentleman, an LLC incorporated in the state of California and operating from a storefront in Beverly Hills. The defendant also became known as the Timepiece Gentleman in marketing, online, and social media materials.
I'd be interested to know the dates that he was taking these. What would you call it? I don't want to call them loans per se, but when he went into business with people that were investing in Timepiece Gentleman's expansion, be interested to know those dates relative to November 2022. Did he take a $3 million loan? He got himself in a pickle, and he's trying to pay those guys back over the next year. Who knows?
When did the blackout happen? Was it 2022 or 2021?
I don't remember. It was early 2022, I would imagine.
No, I think it was 2021. 2022, we were already in the decline.
Right.
Man, time flies.
Jeez. Yep. Yeah, time does fly. It was 2021 for sure. I'm not going to read all the rest of this because this is basically detailing that he took money and watches and he didn't pay people the money that they were owed, which is pretty much self-explanatory. Let's see if there's anything else interesting though here.
They might touch on. I would be interested to see because it might not just be watches.
These are the same elements that were laid out in the indictment. So
yeah, but it was kind of going into detail. He would accept funds from clients, including by wire transfer through Zelle, for the purpose of defendant purchasing a specific watch on behalf of the client. Rather than using clients' funds to purchase watches on behalf of clients, defendant would use the funds for other purposes, including funds his lavish lifestyle, such as purchasing or leasing luxury vehicles, apartments, and other luxury goods. I think it's relevant.
Yep. You want to keep reading?
Yeah, let's go back up to the top. I'll bust through these really quick.
Okay, cool.
Because it just there might be something juicy in here. All right.
Okay, so you can start right here.
Okay. Defendant who also blah 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 purported to buy and sell luxury watches, including selling watches for clients on consignment and typical consignment sale. Blah, blah. If a watch did not sell on consignment within a specific period of time for a specific price, the watch was to be returned to the client. So that was the agreement. In addition to consignment sale business, he also purported, is that how you say that? Purported to purchase watches on behalf of clients. In a typical purchase, a client would send funds to defendant, often by interstate wire transfer into bank accounts controlled by defendant or through other payments, such as Zelle, for the purpose of Anthony locating and purchasing the watch on behalf of the client. Defendant conducted his purported business of consignment sales, as well as buying and selling watches for clients located both in Central District of California as well as throughout the United States. Rather than market and sell watches on consignment or purchase specific watches on behalf of clients as defendant agreed to, defendant instead defrauded victims, taking their watches and funds and using them for his own benefit. The scheme generally operated as follows. Defendant would communicate with clients by text, message, email, telephone, and through other means in interstate and foreign commerce to discuss clients sending the Timepiece Gentleman their luxury watches for consignment. Defendant would agree to take possession of the client's watches for consignment sale purpose, so that watches could be displayed and advertised for sale both in person at TPG storefront in Beverly Hills as well as online. He would send messages attaching shipping labels. He would take possession of clients' watches for consignment. And then rather than selling the watches and remitting payment back to client who owned the watches and who were owed payment for the sales, he would instead sell or otherwise dispose of the watches for his own benefit. For example, defendant would sell client watch unbeknownst to client and would keep the sale proceeds for himself. He would also use client watches unbeknownst to clients as collateral for loans that defendant took out from lenders. As part of those loans, rather than selling watches on consignment for the client, defendant would instead transfer possession of the client's watches as collateral to lenders without client knowledge or approval to do so. That's kind of what I was getting at. So, he took loans. We saw the loans that he took. I don't know if they were technically loans, but they were, people were making investments. I would assume they're loans. You don't invest in a company without some guarantee of money coming back, right, OC?
I mean, it could be equity, right? It could be equity.
Equity something. When a client would inquire about the status of a watch on consignment, defendant would falsely state that the watch had not yet sold, when in fact the watch had been sold or disposed of, and the funds kept the defendant's own benefit. Additionally, defendant would communicate with clients by text message, blah, blah, blah. Defendant would accept funds from clients, including by wire transfer through Zelle. Okay, so this is just the same stuff. This is for the other charge. Okay, I think we're good.
Good job. And then here we go into the details by victim. And
yes, let's go. Yes.
These were all outlined in the indictment, but let's go through them and remind everybody what was alleged. Victim BS, and I have to apologize, but we know who each of these victims is. I think I think this was the victim Bob and the guy. What is his name? Timepiece Bob or something like that, or can't remember.
I don't know.
But he was one of the guys. He ended up making the surreptitious audio and video recordings, I think, of Anthony. Right.
Yep.
On or about July 6th, 2023, the defendant sent messages to the client victim BS, a resident of Arizona, convincing BS to send watches to the defendant for consignment sale. On or about July 6th, the defendant sent a message to BS attaching a Federal Express shipping label that BS could ship his Patek Philippe watch to the defendant for consignment sale. He sent a message attaching the Federal Express shipping label so that BS could also ship his Rolex Skydweller to the defendant for consignment. And he sent two packages. BS sent the two packages via Federal Express, one with a Patek Philippe and a second with a Rolex Skydweller, to the timepiece gentleman in Beverly Hills for consignment sale. On or about July 18th, 2023, so this is about
10 days later.
11 a few days later, 11 days later, when BS inquired about the consignment sale, the defendant told BS that the Rolex Skydweller had sold for $70,000.
That should have been the...
What the fuck?
What is it, like full gold?
Wow. On or about July 20th, 2023, the defendant told BS that the Patek Philippe watch had also sold. When asked why he hadn't yet received payment for the sold watches, the defendant told BS that the defendant did not have the funds to pay. In place of payment, and to lull BS from taking action that could potentially expose the fraud scheme, the defendant said BS a Rolex red letter Sea Dweller watch on or about July 27th, 2023.
Yeah, this is the guy that received the watch and then looked it up and someone was like, my watch was stolen.
Yeah,
that's right. He got the
watch.
He got the Sea Dweller and said, listen, this is somebody else's watch.
Yeah.
After receiving the Rolex red letter Sea Dweller watch, BS determined that the watch actually belonged to another client victim, FL, who had provided the watch to the defendant for consignment sale and was not aware that and did not authorize the defendant to use the watch for payment of a debt that the defendant there owed to another client.
Jesus.
Robbing FL to pay BS. On or about July 12th, 2023, the victim FL, a resident of San Diego, California, sent a Rolex Sea Dweller via Federal Express to the timepiece gentleman. The victim attempted to reach out to the defendant to determine the status of the consignment sale, but he was not able to obtain a response from the defendant regarding the status of the sale. Later, FL viewed a social media post by BS regarding the Sea Dweller that BS had received from the defendant in lieu of payment owed to BS for consignment sale of another watch. FL determined that to be his watch that he had sent to Timepiece Gentleman. FL was not aware and had not authorized the defendant to send this watch as proceeds, and the defendant, as the defendant had agreed to do. Now there's a third victim, victim WS. This is Wesley, right?
You want me to read this one?
Sure, that'd be great.
Beginning in or around November 2022, defendant exchanged messages with client victim WS, a resident of South Carolina, regarding the purchase and sale of watches. In or around May or June 2023, WS began sending watches to TPG in Beverly Hills for consignment sale. On or about June 26, 2023, defendant obtained a loan of $300,000 sent to him by interstate wire transfer from a lender using as collateral for the loan watches that WS had previously sent to TPG for consignment sale. Defendant also transferred possession of WS's watches to the lender to secure the loan. WS was not aware and did not authorize defendant to use his watches as collateral for a loan, nor did WS authorize defendant to transfer possessions of his watches to the lender. Rather, defendant than selling the watches and remitting the purchase funds. Okay, so TPG took a loan and perfect timing.
Yeah, converted the consigned watches into collateral to get his loan. Yeah,
and he probably would have got 50% LTV, right? They're not going to give him anything.
On or about July 15th, 2023, WS sent via Malka Amit, a private secure interstate shipping carrier, approximately 75 watches to TPG in Beverly Hills, California for consignment sale. So I was curious, how are we getting to 5 million? This might be. This might.
I think this was over. I think this was like $1 million worth of watches that Wesley sent.
Yeah. Just 1 second, guys. Anduli's got an interesting point. He said we don't know who the lenders are,
right?
And typically, I mean, I would assume it might be another watch dealer, right?
Maybe. After sending the approximately 75 watches to the TPG, WS discovered that rather than advertising and selling watches that WS had previously sent to the defendant had instead used the watches as collateral for a loan and gave possession of WS's watches to the lender. WS had to then pay the lender the balance of the loan plus interest to reclaim possession of his own watches. Wow.
Wow.
Jesus
this is another.
Christ.
Yeah.
Victim LL. Jesus.
Yeah, this is Lolex, by the way.
On or about July 21st, 2023, client victim Lolex delivered 2 watches, a Richard Mille Baby Nadal and a Rolex Platinum Arabic dial to the TPG in Beverly Hills, California for consignment. On July 31st, 2023, defendant received a wire payment of $170,000 for the sale of the Baby Nadal watch, which was later picked up by the buyer from the Timepiece Gentleman's storefront. Okay, so the guy sends the Nadal for consignment. It sells. Anthony gets a wire. On or about July 31st, so it's sold on the 21st. On or about July 31st, 10 days later, despite having previously sold LO's Richard Mille watch, as well as LO's Rolex Arabic dial, I'm assuming Daytona, watch and having not remitted payment back to LL for the sale, when LL inquired about the watches, defendant falsely told LL that both his watches were still at TPG's store. As a result of the scheme to defraud Defendant fraudulently obtained money and property belonging to over 40 victims,
Holy
totaling losses
shit.
to victims of at least $5,691,005. So
Holy shit.
they're not going to list all 40 victims, right? These are just
No.
this
That's
is
it.
just to show the judge. This is just to show the court. This is the guy. This is what he did to over 40 people.
Right. Wow. 40 victims.
Jeez.
That's in other words 40 people that he converted, that they lost consigned watches.
So here's my question. I don't believe the story of addiction. I don't believe the story of drugs, prostitutes, gambling. Who's typing? He did this for a reason. I'd be really interested to know the reason, right? He was in deep. For him to do this to 40 people, this is no longer robbing Peter to pay Paul. If it is, it got out of hand really quick, right? Like this, if you fuck up a couple deals, you can tell the guy, like, listen, man, I'm sorry. Can you give me 6 months to pay you back, right? Especially if it's like WS or the other guy, they seem like they might be understanding. But for him to do it to 40 people, there was a plan. And it wasn't to buy cocaine or pay his rent. Let's be real. He owed somebody a lot of fucking money.
Well,
greed.
The government is alleging that he spent it all on himself and his lifestyle. And that's one part that it really isn't summarized. Like where was the money?
He lived that lifestyle prior to, right? This all, I think they said this started November 2023 or 2022, right? He was doing okay before that. So
he wasn't saving the homeless. He's not doing anything special.
No, but what I'm saying is 2020, 2021, pre-November 2022, he had a good life, right?
I don't know.
Did he get into $6 million in debt and on November 2022
his gimmick is that he's a criminal, that he has all these DUIs and all this stuff, and he's a bad boy.
I get that, but you would think that there'd be, if he was doing this the whole time, that there'd be victims predating November 2022 is what I'm getting at. This document does not state that. So what caused him to fuck over 40 people? If he was fucking over people in 2020, this would have happened sooner.
What do we have the date of the earliest?
November 2022.
Yeah.
So Rose says it here. Diego is alleging he got some really, really dirty money to live his show-off lifestyle and then robbed 40 people to pay the debt. Yeah, maybe.
I just think keep in mind that also starting in 2022, that's when the market tanked. So maybe that he overextended himself and his watches started losing value. The inventory was losing value and just made some big mistakes.
I think, the lavish lifestyle, he probably was paying that after 2022. But I think there was 2 or 3 times that somebody invested in his company.
Yep. But those
are always talking about investors and I just got $100,000.
Well, what I'm saying, Matt, this is like a build out. So anytime any of our ADs do a new Rolex build out, we always hear, they told me it's a $5 million build out, $10 million build out. So what he was trying to do was on that scale. I think he got investor money and it came time to pay and some pressure was applied. And that's when he started doing this consignment.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Dave. And it can't be it's definitely not a VC fund which lent him money. So it's probably people who are charging him.
Yeah.
It's people that realize they got fucked, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Who's lending money to a felon, right? He's already been to prison before, so it's obviously had to be.
Oh, he had no problem getting naive investors to
plenty of investors.
Plenty of naive investors. And keep in mind also in early 2022 was the beginning of his move to Los Angeles. The escapades with the penthouse, $95,000 a month lease. He entered into a $1.8 million lease and spent $500,000 on furniture and security systems and safes and $10,000 a month apartments or homes for Liz and Darby, and he had
bought me a Wagyu.
And homes in the Hollywood Hills, and he also to the point earlier, there was an alleged robbery in his home. So there's all kinds of shit that was happening around that time. Crazy stuff.
He also said in his apology that he faked a robbery. We don't know which one he's talking about. I think they're all fake.
Let's get to the sentencing guidelines. By the way, Crime Piece is welcome to jump on the panel. I'm going to drop a special link just for Crime Piece in the chat here. Link for the Crime Piece only. Special link just for Crime Piece. Feel free to jump on the panel. We're about to get into the sentencing factors here momentarily, but we have 75 people watching. Guys, upvote the live stream. We have 50 upvotes. Someone's going to be the lucky 50th upvote. Breaking news, in case you're just joining us here on the OC channel, we're covering it. Breaking news, guilty. Anthony Fair has pled guilty to a count of wire fraud and a count of mail fraud in a filing submitted yesterday that has been made public. We're the first people to cover it. The first people to cover it live, guys. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and upvote the live stream. So the Crime Piece, $20 super chat. Thank you very much. I think he gambled a lot of it away. The way he gambled in the videos, he was a degenerate. Degenerate. I had heard he was going to Vegas a lot by himself.
I doubt he did any gambling that he didn't film and put on a video.
So here's my thoughts on that. We watched him for almost 2 years before all this stuff, and I don't remember one time he took his team to Vegas. I think him going to Vegas with consigned money was his attempt to pay back some loan. And when that wouldn't work, he'd have to continue the scam, fuck over more people, and just keep trying to dig himself out. And he probably thought, like, all right, I just fucked some guy over for $300,000. That's 10 spins on roulette, and my loan's paid.
If I go to Vegas, if I get a loan for $300,
he wasn't doing that.
No, I think there's an element to that where he basically says, listen, fuck, I owe so much money. Listen, fuck it. I'm just going to go to Vegas. I'll take $300,000 with me. If I can take that 300 and turn it into 900, I'll dig myself out of a big chunk of this fucking debt.
Yeah. And then when that doesn't work, he's like, fuck, now I owe this guy $300,000. I need $1 million. Right? He takes $1 million from WS or whatever the hell his name is.
Blowing the money on the penthouse, the sushi, the rental cars, the flights.
That doesn't equal
cost so much money.
It's not $6 million.
He was traveling like a famous band travels.
It's not $6 million.
Money. In 3 years, it could be.
It wasn't 3 years. It was a year.
Yeah, they're saying all this was done within about a year.
Yeah. I think 22 to 23, right? November 22 to November.
Yeah. So even if you take, what'd you say his rent was, $90,000?
Yep, $95,000. But he was only there for a couple months though, and then he walked away.
Well, let's assume he was there for a year. And then let's add his $500,000 in furniture. And then let's do a little bit more math. Let's say he spends in a year.
Yeah, you're covering your microphone. Can't hear you.
I think, no, there's echo cancellation. And then let's say he spends $50,000 a year on food, flights, and other extravaganza.
50 on
Not
food,
a year,
flights. He spent $3,000 one night that I met him.
That's $2.2 million. We're talking about a $6 million hole.
But it's a lot more than 50 grand just on food.
Okay, Mathis. Let's say it's 100,000 a month.
No, I get your point. 2 million's gone to someone. 2 million.
Yeah, that's still only 2.4. That's still only 3 million out of 6.
Yeah.
So for him to pay, and we know he didn't stay in his penthouse the whole year, but assuming he did, and assuming he spent 500,000 on furniture, and assuming he spent 100,000 on himself a month for a year, that's only $3 million.
Yeah.
A lot more expenses.
Yeah.
He would have had to spend an additional, just to give you an idea, Mathis, $250,000 a month to get up to the $6 million in debt. That's buying 12 Lamborghinis. I don't think he bought 12 Lamborghinis.
No, he leased them. So he was paying.
Somebody was strong arming the guy, like the mafia. The Russian mafia. He would have told the FBI by now.
No, he would be dead if he told the FBI.
Buckley says,
yes, he would.
Some scary person gave him money to cover a hole. Big ego Anthony didn't deliver. Got life threats. Stole the money from everybody suddenly to save his life. Been saying it for months.
Yeah, I agree. I believe that.
Yeah. And Vimal said it best. The people that loaned him money, these weren't people like, these were just jabronis. Let's be honest, right? These are these Instagram influencer, get rich fast scheme guys. They saw his hustle. They saw the numbers he was writing on the whiteboard, and they reached out. Hey, man, I love what you're doing. I believe in a fighter. You're a hustler.
You're a hustler. You reminded me when I started my my contracting business.
My waste management company.
Do you guys think his sentence should be reduced because of that, if it were to be true?
No. I'm simply asking why, after 2 years of, let's just put air quotes, decent business, did he all of a sudden break bad and fuck over?
That's the game. He's playing the game, the criminal game.
God damn it, Mathis.
And sometimes you get banged up. That's it.
That's what we're saying. He after 2 years of good business, he decided, I'm going to fuck over 40 people. Why?
It's
not just that he wanted to pay for a penthouse.
Because when you play the game, these things happen. That's it.
OC, do you want to do a poll before we scroll down? I think the sentencing is coming up.
Sure, I can do a poll. What do you have in mind?
5 to 10, 10 plus. I think it's going to be 5 to 7 years.
What's the poll specifically? What do you want me to ask?
Yeah. How much time is TPG going to be in prison?
How much is he going to get, or how much do you want him to get?
How much is he going to get?
How much is he going to get? Okay. All right. Hold on a second.
Because I guess everyone wants him locked away for life. But
all right. Let's see. I'm starting a poll right now. The question is, what will be TPG's sentence? Okay. And I'm going to give you a few choices. I'm going to say, the choice number 1 is going to be under 3 years. Okay. The next one is going to be 3 to 5 years. And then the third option is going to be 5 to 7 years. Do these sound like reasonable things here, guys? And then the next one, the last final option is going to be 8 or more years. Okay? And boom. The poll,
with B.
The poll is live. Guys, this is it's a silent, secret democracy. The poll is open. What do you think? This is not what you want, but what do you think TPG's sentence will be? And I want to thank the Crime Piece again for the super chat. I want to thank Andui for his super chat fund for the election year polling. Thank you very much, Andui. Guys, this channel is supported by super chats and memberships. If you have a star next to your name, you're a member, and I thank you. If you don't have a star, please consider becoming a member today. And in order to become a member, I will drop the link in the chat. And then we're going to get back to reading this. So here's the link to the memberships. Okay. Boom.
And remember, guys, there was a case where I think it was in Texas, or I can't remember, one count of wire fraud, about $2 million. The guy, I think, got 20 years.
Yeah, but Diego, did he go to trial though?
Pardon me?
Or did he sign a plea deal?
I'm assuming he signed a plea deal. Well, maybe no. I think he went to trial.
Yeah, that's what. So when you roll the dice, they really want to get you because they spend so much money. And
all right, let's keep going.
Yeah,
let's keep going. I will read the next section. I've got my second win back here. I think I can do it justice. The sentencing factors. Here we go. The defendant understands that in determining the defendant's sentence, the court is required to calculate the applicable sentencing guidelines range and to consider that range, possible departures under the sentencing guidelines, and the other sentencing factors set forth in 18 U.S.C. 3553A. The defendant understands that the sentencing guidelines are advisory only, that the defendant cannot have any expectation of receiving a sentence within the calculated guidelines range, and that after considering the guidelines and other factors, the court will be free to exercise its discretion to impose any sentence it finds appropriate up to the maximum set by statute for the crimes of conviction. The defendant and the United States Attorney's Office agree to the following applicable sentencing guideline factors. Base offense level 7, loss greater than 3.5 million, and 10 plus victims. So that means there's a 7 plus 18 plus 2. So that means you're in sentencing guideline level 27.
Yep.
27. The defendant and the United States Attorney's Office reserve the right to argue that additional specific offense characteristics, adjustments, and departures under the sentencing guidelines are appropriate. The defendant understands that the defendant's offense level could be increased if the defendant is a career offender. The defendant's offense level is so altered, the defendant and the U.S. Attorney's Office will not be bound by the agreement to the sentencing guideline factors set forth above. The defendant understands that there is no agreement as to the defendant's criminal history or the criminal history category. And the defendant and the United States Attorney's Office reserve the right to argue for a sentence outside the sentencing range established by the sentencing guidelines based on the factors set forth in these sections.
Wait, so that means they can ask for a lower sentence? It's in defendant and the U.S. Attorney's Office, right? So
I think all of this is just cover your ass type stuff.
Yeah.
The judge isn't going to do anything that the both parties haven't agreed to.
This language is if the judge says, I don't agree, and here's where it says that I have the authority not to agree.
Yep. Thank you very much, OG Baby Girl, for supporting the channel with a $5 super chat. She is amazing. She supports a whole bunch of channels out there, and she really is a cool member of the community. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate that. Let's keep going here. And then there's, I think we're probably towards the end. Let's see here. The defendant waives his constitutional rights. I don't think we need to get into this in detail, but let's see where it goes. The defendant understands that by pleading guilty, the defendant is giving up the following rights: the right to persist in a plea of not guilty, the right to a speedy and public trial, the right to be represented by counsel, and if necessary, have the court-appointed counsel at trial. The defendant understands, however, that the defendant retains the right to be represented by counsel, and if necessary, have the court-appointed counsel at every other stage of the proceeding. The right to be presumed innocent and to have the burden of proof placed on the government to prove the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, the right to confront and cross-examine witnesses against the defendant. So in other words, he's giving up all the rights here. The right to testify. He's giving up his right to testify. He's giving up his right to not be compelled to testify, and he gives up all of his Fifth Amendment rights, Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. A waiver of the appeal of conviction and collateral attack. The defendant understands, with the exception of an appeal based on a claim that the defendant's guilty pleas were involuntary, by pleading guilty, the defendant is waiving and giving up any right to the appeal to appeal the defendant's convictions. Does that make sense? So in other words, you can't appeal this.
Yep.
Yeah. The defendant also gives up the right to bring a post-conviction collateral attack on the convictions or the sentence. I'm not sure what that means.
Your Honor,
it sounds
Your
vicious.
Honor, I have a conviction collateral attack to present.
Collateral attack are things like ineffective assistance of counsel, a claim of newly discovered evidence, or an explicably retroactive change in the sentencing guidelines. So it's something that's administrative, right? Or something like that. Like, hey, I wasn't my attorney was a dick. It's like, yeah, too bad.
Or if next week they say, if he signs this document, next week they reduce wire fraud and mail fraud to say 6 months in jail. I'm sorry, buddy, you agreed to what it is right now.
Yeah. Please vote in the poll, by the way. The poll is running right now. We want to get to at least 30 votes. I mean, we've got, over 80 people watching. We should easily get to 40 votes, guys. So if you're watching this live stream right now, vote. The question is, what do you think Anthony Ferrer's sentence will be? What will be TPG sentence? Is it 3 or fewer years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 7 years, or 8 or more years? Just enter your vote in the chat. Your vote is secret. We won't know the answer. It's anonymous. Only I know.
All right,
and
let's have Mathis read the next one.
Yeah, Mathis. Paragraph 22. Mathis, go.
I'm on my phone. Hold on, let me zoom this in here. I can't see that. I can't see it.
All right, I'll read it. I was going to read it like Mathis, but that's too much effort. Defendant also gives up any right to bring collateral attack. I think we read that already. Limited mutual waiver of appeal of sentence. The defendant agrees that provided the court imposes a total term of imprisonment on all counts of conviction within or below the range corresponding to the total offense level of 24 after the reductions for acceptance of responsibility and the criminal history category calculated by the court. The defendant gives up the right to appeal all of the following: procedures and calculations used to determine the sentence, the term of imprisonment, the fine, the constitutionality or legality of the sentence, the amount of restitution, provided that it requires payment no more than $8 million. So they're setting a cap. So in other words, like if the restitution is 8 million or lower, you can't appeal that. But if it's above 8 million, then you're like, you know what, you might be allowed to appeal. Or you will be allowed to appeal. The term of probation or the supervised release, like basically you can't do anything here. You can't appeal jack shit.
To the 24.
Yep.
So earlier we read that if he makes his apology, they lower it 1 to 2 levels, right?
3 up to 3.
Up to 3 levels.
I thought the third had to do with his, where does it say? His criminal history.
Right. Not having a big criminal history.
I don't know. Even if they lower it 3, based on his feeling sorry for everybody, they might look at the criminal history category, and that might bump it above a 24.
But Diego, my question is: are they considering federal criminal history or state? Because I don't think he went.
I don't think he has any federal criminal history. He has some. He has state DUIs.
Yeah, right. I don't think
they also don't specify those state or federal.
Yeah, but I don't think. I think DUI is probably not as intense. I think so.
Right, it's not violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but neither were these crimes, Mathis.
Right. And all those numbers we're reading of the years, that's if he pleads innocent and the judge wants to punish him. If he pleads guilty, you could cut all these things in half.
And Diego, my understanding from point 23 is they're looking for something at 24 or below. Because in a plea deal...
What does 24 mean?
Level 24. So if...
Yeah, but what is that?
So that means level 24, the minimum is 51 months and the maximum is 100. So somewhere in the middle would be around 5 years, 5 to 7 years.
Is that per count, or is this going to be assumed for both? I think that's per count, right?
That could be per count. So, but again, as part of the plea deal, you can also serve it concurrently.
Right.
So
okay.
So
let's keep going.
Good points, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, and let's see here. Where did I leave off? The U.S. Attorney's Office agrees that provided that all portions of the sentence are at or below the statutory maximum specified above, and the court imposes a term of imprisonment within or above the range corresponding to a total offense level 24, the U.S. Attorney's Office gives up its right to appeal any portion of the sentence, with the exception that the United States Attorney's Office reserves the right to appeal the amount of restitution ordered if that amount is less than $5.7 million. So in other words, let's say it works the opposite, where the judge gives a particularly lenient sentence and orders very low restitution. If it's lower than 5.7 million, then the U.S. has the right to appeal. Does that make sense?
I would be so shocked if a judge says, you fucked over 40 people for 6 million, 5 years. That is so lenient. Why would they agree to this?
Yeah, and also if the sentence is at the absolute low end of the range, they're basically saying, listen, we're agreeing to that. The judge could agree. The judge could say, listen, if the range is 2 to 4 years or whatever, and we give the guy 2 years or 2 years and 3 months, hey, that's allowed. We can't appeal that.
So, but here's my next question. Why? This is an open and shut case. What was the purpose of the prosecutors accepting this?
It's expensive. It's expensive to take it to trial.
Very expensive and time consuming. It could take a year, and And
at the end of the day, you're leaving it up to the jury, right? So you never know. You never know how things get played out.
I get that.
Yeah.
But then shouldn't the plea simply be, listen, dude, like, you're going away no matter what for the full, sentence. You've done these things. You've admitted it. So we'll take your plea agreement guilty, and then we're just going to charge you for the full. Like, why are they?
No.
Making concessions. Why are they making concessions?
No. So you agree to the plea based on the terms of the sentencing. So they talk it out. They decide, okay, if my client confesses, right, pleads guilty, what is the max you're going to go after in terms of sentencing? And then they agree to come down, get to an agreement that, okay, fine, we'll agree at offense level 24. Because if you notice, if it's at 24, both sides waive off all their rights to appeal. So 24 is what they're looking for here. Because if it's below 24, the U.S. Attorney's Office can appeal. If it's above 24, he can appeal. So I think the number they're looking at is 24 here in terms of sentencing. And that's something they arrived at because, and a lot of times these cases are kicked down the ladder to someone junior and they want to win, right? You take it to trial and you lose. Your reputation is screwed in the office and then it hampers your career progression. Instead, just take a conviction and move on.
Man, so they'd rather send this guy to jail for less time just so that they don't have to work hard.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like Matthew said, it's not a violent offense, right? How many people heard of Anthony Ferrer apart from the watch community? So no one's really invested in the case. And if they can just settle the matter and get a win and move on, that's all.
Yeah, I'll I'll go back to my analogy, like from an hour or so ago. Let's say I rolled through a stop sign, right?
Yeah,
They
right.
have thousands of cases of guys that roll through the stop sign. Okay, the guy didn't come to a complete stop. You know what? The state would much rather for me to pay a $71 fine and be done with it than rather to have to try and call the officer, have him pay for him to take a day off work, come and testify. Oh, did you see him roll through the stop sign? Oh, yes, I did. It's like it's expediency. It's the way. One of the elements of our justice system. I don't know if people think it makes it work better or worse. I'm not quite sure, but it just is a reality of how we have to process through the volume of cases.
You're right too. Thinking about it more critically, this is a win for the prosecutor as well, because all the assets are going to them, right? They're holding him accountable to pay back the 5.6, and if he doesn't, he gets thrown in jail for 30 years or 40 years. So they kind of have like, all right, people might. Well, I don't think the people are going to get paid back, but they're going to make a bunch of money, and they're putting him in a predicament that he probably will end up back in jail and serve the actual full term. Let's be real. This guy's going to fuck up again.
Yeah. He may, but this could be all part of his rising from the ashes story that makes him a Hollywood superstar, which he's always wanted.
My money is in Anthony Ferrer Mega Church. It's coming soon.
Can somebody in the chat confirm or deny federal charges are served consecutively, not concurrently?
It says it's concurrently unless the statute or the judge orders it be served separately.
That's in this document, or that's just?
I looked it up online. That's what it said.
Okay.
So it's up to the deal agreement, for whatever they've agreed to here.
Let's keep going.
Okay. The defendant agrees that result of withdrawal of the guilty plea. So let's say so he's agreed to this, and let's say he shows up to court and he decides to withdraw the guilty plea. The defendant agrees that if, after entering the guilty pleas pursuant to this agreement, the defendant seeks to withdraw, and he succeeds in withdrawing the defendant's guilty pleas on any basis other than a claim and finding that the entry into this plea agreement was involuntary, then the United States Attorney's Office will be relieved of all of its obligations under this agreement. And the United States Attorney's Office, and should the U.S. choose to pursue any charge that was either dismissed or not filed as a result of this agreement, then any applicable statute of limitations will be told between the date of the defendant's signing of this agreement and the filing commencing any such action, and the defendant waives and gives up all defenses based on the statute of limitations. This is basically saying this is a timing issue. So basically, if you agree to plead guilty, but somehow you manage to withdraw the plea, that the time gap in between doesn't count towards statute of limitation, or doesn't count towards any other time-based limitation. Does that make sense? It's not a huge deal. Result of the vacatur, reversal, or agrees that if any count of conviction is vacated, reversed, or set aside, the United States Attorney's Office may ask the court to resentence the defendant on any remaining counts of conviction, with both the United States Attorney's Office and the defendant being released from any stipulations, blah, blah, blah. Not sure what all of this means. Let's see if we can go here. This date that they signed, I think they signed it yesterday.
Probably pretty much it. Breach of agreement. Yeah, I'm sure if you breach this agreement, you're fucked.
Yep. the court and the U.S. Probation's Office are not parties to this agreement. That's right. They're not involved. And there you go. And then it is signed by Anthony Ferrer, Joshua Mauser, and Erica Choi. Erica Choi was his public defender. Yep.
Erica Choi's got that leave your tip at the coffee shop signature. He's like, fuck it. He did not care.
Yep. So there we have it, guys. Anthony Ferrer has pled guilty to 2 counts, 2 federal crimes, wire fraud and mail fraud. And now it is it's going to go to the judge for sentencing. And I'm sure other people will do a very in-depth job looking at those sentencing guidelines and analysis of what it means, what the ranges are, and what the reductions mean. And that's it.
Gnarly.
And you're next, Wizard.
Anything else? Shall we pivot to Watch Talk, or are we good?
Yeah, we can.
Anybody in the chat have any want to jump on the panel? The poll. Let's go to let's see how many people we have voting in the poll. Let's get to 40 votes, guys. Let's get to 40 votes in the poll. I think we have 1 slot left. If one more person votes, then we will be able to call it. If you haven't voted yet, please check out the poll in the chat. What will TPG's sentence be? Make your voices heard. Need one more person to vote.
And by the way, if you guys missed the unboxing on the Colony earlier today, I'm going to drop the link to the stream. You got to check it out. It was a very surprising unboxing.
It was a very good unboxing, an amazing unboxing. Make sure you check it out on the Watch Community channel earlier today. Watch the whole show. It was great. Okay, here are the results of the poll. What will TPG's sentence be? 40% said 8 or more years. 25% said 5 to 7 years. 20% said 3 or under 3 years, and 15% said 3 to 5 years. So basically, about 45% of you said it was going to be 5 years or less, and 65% of you said it was going to be 5 years or more. So we shall see. I think the audience wants him to have a longer sentence, and so that psychology probably plays into how they voted, right? You think maybe?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and here's a funny thing. He can actually write a letter to Biden for pardon because it's a federal offense. So before he leaves office, he can actually pardon TPG. Who knows? He must have sold a watch to Hunter at something. If he did.
And I know the question.
But
go ahead.
Somebody else jump on, get some good watch talk going. I'll be listening.
Yeah, someone else jump on. What I'll do is, now that the poll is closed, the pin should be linked at the top of the chat. But there's the link again, and drop in the chat. Feel free to jump on, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Oh, there's over 50 people still watching. So let's get to, by the way, on the upvote side, thank you so much for all the upvotes. Really appreciate that. Thanks for the generous support of the channel. Wrapping this portion of the stream up, unless somebody wants to keep talking about it. But basically, Anthony Ferrer has pled guilty, and we are bringing you the exclusive. We went through the entire plea agreement here, guys. Anthony Ferrer pleads guilty to mail fraud and wire fraud, 1 count of each. And we'll be monitoring very closely what those sentencing guidelines mean and what is in store for a possible sentence.
Lock him up.
Lock him up. Lock him up. All right,
How you
I'm
liking
toast.
your watch, Vimal?
What, Mathis? I didn't hear you.
How you liking your new pickup, Vimal?
Oh, I love it.
Good.
Yes. But I don't wear it that often, though. Just it gets a lot of attention. So probably start wearing it in winter once you got the long sleeve jacket on. It's easier.
Okay, I got you.
How things in Miami? Sorry.
Well, there's a hurricane coming right now.
Yeah. It's on the other side, right?
should-
The West Coast.
Yeah, it should be fine. But I know Brian left town, so he'll be fine too. And I know
It's
that
hitting Orlando?
it's heading straight for Doc's Report's golf course.
Ooh.
But that's it. That's all I got. I'm glad that OC doesn't let the criminals rest. One night he's going after TPG. The other night he's going after the Wizard. I love it.
Got to keep the focus on these bad guys so they don't weasel their way back into our community. Yeah, Hurricane Milton regains Category 5 strength. Destructive storm surge is expected. I heard a storm surge of 12 feet or more could smash into the Florida coast. This is expected to arrive. When is it? Is it
Wednesday? I thought, right? Tomorrow. Tomorrow evening.
It's been raining where I live for 3 days, so I know this is a huge storm.
Hurricane Milton has strengthened into a Category 5 once again. The storm continues to pose a grave danger to Florida, where its potential historic strike will bring destructive, life-threatening storm surge, widespread wind damage, flooding, rainfall, and tornadoes beginning Wednesday. That's tomorrow, guys. Milton has the potential to be one of the most destructive hurricanes on record for West Central Florida, said the National Hurricane Center. All preparations should be rushed to completion today. And if you're in an area prone to storm surge, follow the advice of local officials and evacuate if ordered. I know that most people in Florida, most of our community members in Florida have that are in the path have left. I know Brian left yesterday. Shelby, who is a Jordan Identity, who's in Miami, who's actually far away from the impact, left yesterday or today as well. And the only two knuckleheads who are still there are BW, and Mathis. No.
And
BW's in Jacksonville, so I think I don't know. This is this could have wide.
Helger Strand is in the path. Doc Mick is in danger.
What about Chalk flew up? Is he there? No,
I'm not sure. But let me just say, right, this hurricane came from Mexico and it's heading east. Usually, 99% of the time, the hurricanes come from
the southeast and go
ocean.
West. Yeah.
Exactly. So with this hurricane going east, that means it's just going to shove water. It's just going to shove water into all the inlets, and it could be a really, really bad storm surge, like 3 times as bad as if it was going from east to west.
Did anyone hear? Bad. Did anyone hear about what happened in Cancun?
Baby girl, OG baby girl, Ali Reza's fine. I spoke to him. He made a move.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that, Mathis.
Is it the attack at the resort?
I couldn't hear you, Vimal.
Is it the one that the resort was attacked by cartel members?
No, I'm just wondering, like, what happened in terms of the storm passing over Cancun. Like, what was the damage like?
No. I think it originated off the coast of Cancun, and then
okay. So it didn't hit Cancun.
Yeah, I don't think it hit Cancun. I'm looking at the tracker. This is bad.
It's super, super rare for one to form where it did. What's bad? Maybe. Purple's bad in that picture?
Yeah, purple means hurricane warning. Yeah, so
and red means okay.
Red means tropical storm warning, which means like a slightly lower speed.
All right, I'm gonna get my
The winds will be
surfboard
lower.
I'm gonna get my surfboard out of storage tomorrow morning.
Wow. Look at this. Milton, 165 miles per hour. Looks like it's hitting Tampa around, according to this, maybe Thursday morning.
Early AM. So yeah.
Yeah. So best wishes to everybody. Impact forecast, storm surge. Ooh.
And OC, the other thing I was reading is a lot of homes are out of insurance now in Florida because the rates have gone up so much. People stop renewing their home insurance.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah. And I think a lot of providers have also exited the market. So getting a home
it's better than having winter and having to put chains on your car's tires for 8 months of the year like MJ and Boston do.
Mathis, you're not actually supposed to put chains on your car tires.
Oh, I thought they do that.
No, that's only emergency vehicles in a snowstorm. Have you never? Come on, man. You're from New York. You've seen it.
It's been a long time since I've even seen snow. It's been since I was a little kid. I don't do cold weather anymore. And I can't wait for OC to move down here and Buckley.
It's possible. You never know.
It's happening. It's happening.
All right. I'm toast, guys. Thanks so much for joining. I really, really appreciate it. Once again, just to recap the news, Anthony Farrer, timepiece gentleman, pleads guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of mail fraud. We went through the plea agreement in detail, excruciatingly painful detail. Upload the live stream on the way up. And thanks for everyone's super chats. Really appreciate it. I want to specifically call out The Crime Piece, and Dewey, OG Baby Girl, and Mathis for the super chats. Thanks, guys. Become members of the original OC channel today. It's very important that everybody who is watching supports the channel. Memberships start as low as $4.99 a month. I'm going to drop the link to the memberships in the chat. If you don't have a star next to your name, please become a member. We would really, really appreciate it. And on that note, what I'll do is this. I'll drop a link to the VIP after show. If you want to get on the show when we're off the air and say all the things that you're afraid to say on air, boom, click that link. And I say, peace out. Good night, everybody. Peace.
Come jump on somebody. Jump on
the after show. We're going to talk till midnight and we're going to go crazy. So jump on. Peace out.
Wizard talk.
See ya.